Who are you? And what are you doing on my bed? Kemi tried to explain. I'm your wife, baby. Shut up. Don't you baby me. You're not my wife. As the festival ended late into the night, Fatima and Ifoma helped to clean up, laughing nervously as they avoided eye contact with anyone. The bee also came and helped to clean up, her hands trembling slightly. Daniel was happy about this new change. Change is the only thing that's constant in life. I'm convinced they learned their lessons, he said to himself before going to bed. Daniel came to Emeka and asked if she could have a word with him. Go ahead. What is the matter? He asked, noticing her fidgeting with the hem of her dress. No, there's no problem. I just want to appreciate you for everything, for all the gifts. Despite being aware of how cruel I and my children have been to your wife, still, you allowed us to stay in your house and gave us lots of gifts, more than you give anyone else. Conley, you're such a good man. I also want to plead with you. We'd love to stay for the rest of the festival if you don't mind. I know everything you did to my wife in the past. You see, I went to Isla Town to look for a wife. When I met Remy, I knew she was the one. When I made inquiries and discovered your attitude towards her, I decided to lay very low so you would accept my proposal. Who am I not to forgive you? If not for what you did, I wouldn't have been able to marry her. Staying for the rest of the festival is not an issue at all. It's just 6 days away. There's enough food and drink. The house is big enough for you and your children, your family, and I have forgiven you. Feel free. It's your home. Elizabeth was so excited because her plans were coming into play. She clutched a small, tattered notebook filled with hastily written notes of her schemes. Emeka retired to his room and narrated everything they had discussed to his wife. You let them stay for 6 extra days without first discussing it with me. Do you know what they are capable of with 6 days on their side? They will achieve a lot of evil plans. I was just waiting for the dawn of the day so they would leave, yet you gave them another 6 days without discussing it with me first. This is not good at all. My love, I understand how you feel, but they are your family. I couldn't just bring myself to say no to her. Then you should have at least discussed it with me first before making that decision. I'm so sorry, my love. I take all the blame. Just calm down. It's just 6 days and everything will be all right. Hassan, I don't want to hear any more stories. 6 days and that's it. Fatima and her children started their plot that night, whispering furtively in a locked room illuminated by a single flickering candle. Fatima called her evil friend, Auntie, who's just like her. They were on the phone all night, making plans and deciding how to strike. Fatima told Auntie Ola to dress properly for the occasion and come with everything they needed to carry out their plans successfully. The next day, Auntie went to Baba Sola, who made some charms for her, and gave her a calabash to give to Fatima. On the 3rd day of the festival, Auntie arrived at the mansion. Fatima was so excited to see her. Auntie was also a widow like Fatima, who had 2 grown-up daughters who left her because of her evil attitude towards others. They worked and lived in the city, but never visited their mother, only sending her a monthly allowance. Fatima, Auntie, and Auntie's 2 daughters continued in their pretense. With the presence of Auntie, they became even more successful in their plan, as Auntie brought everything Fatima needed to execute her plans. They kept cleaning after each day and preparing for the next day. They literally turned themselves into maids, trying to win Daniel's trust and make him believe that they truly changed. They felt if they could get Daniel on their side, Kemi was a walkover, and they successfully did this with all their pretense. Emeka was a very free-spirited person who believed anyone could change for the better. He believed in second chances more than anyone else. On the seventh day of the festival, which was also the last day, Fatima decided to carry out a grand plan. She decided to serve Fatima and Emeka by herself. She told the maid not to bother taking the food to them as she was going to do it herself. She added the portion and took it to Fatima and Emeka. Emeka didn't like the fact that Fatima served them, but Emeka told her to let go. That is her mother. You should forgive her and let go. Emeka tasted the food before them just to prove to them that it was in good condition. Since the portion was specially made with Fatima's name, it couldn't affect anyone else. And since it wasn't a portion to kill, she had nothing to lose, so she tasted it. You see, there's nothing. If there was something inside, she wouldn't have tasted it. Would she kill her own self? Just let it go. They've truly changed, he said. Fatima walked out, and Fatima and Emeka ate the food. The festival ended very late into the night, and as usual, Fatima, her friend, and her two daughters cleaned up. Just when Emeka was beginning to feel that it might be true, that they truly changed, Fatima's plot manifested. Emeka and Emeka went to bed happy, only to wake up as strangers. Emeka screamed as he woke up, seeing Kemi. "Who are you? And what are you doing on my bed?" Kemi tried to explain. "I'm your wife, baby." "Shut up! Don't you baby me! You're not my wife," he screamed. His voice was so loud that Fatima and her daughters ran to the room. As soon as he saw Fatima, he said, "Where have you been? That's my wife." But Kemi tried to explain to him, but he wouldn't listen. "Leave my house at once." You wicked impersonator. Fatima and Ioma helped to push her out. She ran to some of his relatives and explained what had happened. But there was nothing they could do. They knew it wasn't ordinary. Fatima had used a very, very strong charm. They pleaded with her to stay with them in the meantime until they could figure out how to bring him back to his senses. Kemi was 4 months pregnant when she was thrown out of the house. One day, a message came from Akur village that her grandfather had passed away, so she decided to go stay with her grandmother. Kemi was 4 months pregnant when she was thrown out of the house. One day, a message came from Akur village that her grandfather had passed away, so she decided to go and stay with her grandmother. Months turned into a year. She delivered a cute little prince. Since her grandmother, Maidie, was old and could no longer work, Kemi had to work on people's farmlands and sell petty items in order to feed herself, her son, and her grandmother. Nobody knew she was married to a billionaire. Mama regretted ever allowing her son to marry Fatima after hearing everything Kemi told her about Fatima. Every day, Mama came with the guilt that she had made Kemi go through all the suffering and troubles. "If I had allowed your father to be with your mother in peace, there wouldn't have been any need for Fatima, and you probably wouldn't have been suffering like this," she cried, blaming herself for everything. "Now the children I wanted are useless. I still just have one granddaughter. It's all my fault," she lamented. "Big Mama, it's okay. I understand how you feel," Kemi replied. "One thing is for sure, God will fight for you, my child." Help will come from unexpected places. The spirit of your father and your mother will also fight for you. Mama Chidi prayed. The day of Papa Chidi's burial came. Fatima and her daughters, along with Fatima, also came. As soon as Kemi saw her husband, she ran to him. You again, what are you doing here? Why are you everywhere I am? I am not your husband. I do not know you, he shouted. Look at your son, I named him Fatima, she said, pointing at her son. But he drove her out of his sight. She kept crying all through. When Ioma saw how much Kemi had been suffering, how terrible she looked, and how her son was struggling along with her old grandmother, she felt compassion and regretted everything they had done to her. Ioma went to a quiet place and cried, remembering how wickedly they had treated Kemi. Growing up, Kemi's mom never treated us badly. She guided us on the right path. She loved me. Kemi was always a big sister to me. Where did I go wrong? My mom taught us to hate an innocent woman. Even in her death, she maltreated her daughter in her own father's house. She maltreated her daughter in her own father's house. She married off a daughter to a man without asking about his family. Nothing if Ioma kept crying bitterly. Will she ever forgive me? How would she trust me? I was her favorite little sister. We were sent out of our husbands' homes, and my mom didn't scold us. My mom is the real devil here. She was sad all through the burial. When they got back to Daniel's house, her attitude changed. She told her mom that she would no longer be part of their evil plans. But her mom threatened to kill her if she ever said a word. So, Ioma ran back to Kemi's village. As soon as Kemi saw her, she carried a knife and threatened to kill her and herself. But Mama pleaded with her to hear her out. Ioma explained everything her mom and auntie had done. She cried and begged Kemi to forgive her, promising to help her. Kemi replied, "The only way I will believe you've truly changed is if you break the calabash. I'll go back and pretend to have come back to my senses, to make them believe I'm with them, so I can get access to the calabash," Ioma said. She went back and pretended to still be with them. Her mother was happy that she had returned. Little did she know that Ioma had a plan. The next day, while Fatima and Auntie, who had come to visit, were discussing in the sitting room over steaming cups of hibiscus tea, Daniel and Fatima were taking a nap. Ioma brought out the calabash and told her mom, "It's over, enough of all this evil, Mom. Change, I'm going to break this calabash and set Kemi free from your bondage. What are you enjoying? It doesn't even touch Fatima. She told you to stop, yet you want the money. This is not marriage, but deception, and I'm going to end everything right now. If you had treated Kemi well, you would have enjoyed everything because she would have taken you like a mother. Please, my child, don't break it. Please. I beg you." But Ioma lifted it and smashed it on the ground. "Yay, this girl has killed me." Oh, the noise from the scene woke Daniel and Fatima. As soon as Daniel saw Kemi, he recognized her. "What are you doing on my bed, Fatima? Get out of my bed. Where is Kemi?" he screamed. He went out and met Fatima crying. "What is going on here? Where is my wife?" he demanded. He ordered everywhere to be locked. No one comes in and no one goes out. Ioma took him inside and narrated everything that had happened, telling him it had been 2 full years. When he heard about his son, he was so excited. "You mean for 2 years my wife has been living like a beggar? You people are honestly devils in human form. You, your sister, your mom, And Auntie will pay for this. I deserve any punishment. I deserve any punishment, Ioma said. At least it will be recorded for me that I did one good thing before I died. I'm ready to pay for all my sins. My life has been ruined. I want to do one good thing before I die, she said, crying. She was truly remorseful. When Daniel heard her, he felt pity and knew in his heart that it was a genuine change. I'll give you one more chance and spare you because you helped me. Without your help, I would have still been in that bondage, he said. Meanwhile, Ioma tried to convince Fatima that they were on the wrong side and needed to turn a new leaf, but Fatima wouldn't listen. Mom is using us for selfish interests. She doesn't really care about us. Obina and Ushe were pushed to rob because of Mom, and she doesn't even care. She abandoned them there. I have been the only one going to visit them. Can't you still get it? But Fatima refused to listen to her sister because she had Daniel at her disposal. He did whatever she wanted. Ioma agreed to take Daniel to her own village, to grandmother's house where Kemi stayed, just like she had promised. After discussing with Daniel, he bundled Fatima, Auntie, and Fatima into the car. As Ioma directed him, he drove straight to the village. He wept profusely when he saw his wife. The condition he found her in reminded him of how she had suffered in the hands of Fatima. Seeing her in that same condition broke his heart greatly. He hugged his wife, carried his son, and wept profusely. Fatima and Auntie were taken to her husband's kinsmen, who, after judgment, sent them to the king. The final judgment was passed. Fatima, and Auntie, and even Baba Sola, who had given them the potion, were banished. Fatima, who was married from another village, was also banished from her own village, as the matter was taken to her own village too. She and her daughter, including Auntie Ola, were also banished from Daniel's village, never to set their feet in the village or their festival ever again. They became wanderers. Wherever they went, they were driven away. After a few months, Daniel took his wife and son back with him. Mama and Ioma also stayed with them. Ioma never went back to her past life, but became a better person. Mama lived with them until the day of her death. She realized that the number of children didn't really matter. She understood that just one child can become more than 1,000 children. Daniel later helped to bring out Obina and Uchi from the prison. By the time they came out, they had already learned their lessons. They also stayed with Daniel. They pleaded that they wanted to learn skills. Obina became the best fashion designer in Daniel's town. He made all Daniel's outfits, and people from far and wide came to patronize him. Ushe, who loved school, later graduated and became a doctor. Ioma was later married to Daniel's business partner, a very wealthy and kind man. They loved and respected Daniel and Kemi, and they took them as their parents and were never disrespectful to them in any way at all. Mama Shidi died at a very good old age, and she was taken back to her village for burial. She was buried beside her husband. Daniel and Kemi later had 3 more kids. They lived in peace and harmony. The moral of the story is that no matter how long you succeed in evil, as long as you don't change, there will be a day of reckoning, a day when you will pay for every evil you've done. And you know, the Bible says there's seed time and harvest. The evil seed you sow will come in multiple folds of evil harvest, because the harvest is always greater than the seed. You will reap whatever you sow. Please sow kindness, sow love, Sow humility, sow compassion and mercy, so you can have a good harvest. This story reminds us of the timeless truth that no matter how long evil prevails, justice and reckoning will always come. It emphasizes the importance of sowing seeds of kindness, love, and humility, for these are the virtues that lead to lasting harmony and fulfillment. Let this serve as a call to reflect on our actions and strive to build a world rooted in compassion and forgiveness. Thank you for joining us on this journey of lessons and inspiration. Stay tuned for more stories that challenge, teach, and inspire. Once upon a time, in a beautiful village where the sun always smiled and people laughed a lot, there lived a kind king named Amani. He was like a big, warm hug for the whole village. King Amani loved his people, and he showed it in a special way every year. You see, in this village, everyone helped to grow food on a big farm owned by the king. They grew yams, corn, and lots of fruits. And when it was time to harvest, King Amani did something amazing. He would share all the food from the farm with the villagers. Yes, everyone got a piece of the farm's bounty, making sure no one was hungry. He would often visit each family personally, handing them baskets filled with fresh produce and sharing a warm smile. This made the villagers love King Amani even more. They respected him a lot because he was generous and always thought about their well-being. But in this beautiful village, there was also Prince Jabari, the king's son. Prince Jabari was very different from his father. He was handsome, but he was not as kind. People called him the shameless prince. Imagine someone walking around, acting like he made the sun rise and the birds sing, not listening to anyone, especially the older people. That was Jabari. He liked to remind everyone that he would be king one day, and sometimes he didn't behave nicely. He would go to where people drank palm wine, tell everyone to leave, drink as much wine as he wanted, and then not even pay a single coin to the seller. The palm wine seller, a kind man who worked hard every day, could only watch as Prince Jabari drank away his efforts. Afterward, he would toss the empty cup aside carelessly, letting it roll into the dust as if it were worthless. This wasn't a one-time thing. Prince Jabari did stuff like this a lot. He'd go to the market, grab whatever he fancied, and say, "I'm the future king, so it's mine." He would often throw fruits up in the air, catching them with a smirk, as if he was performing for an audience. The villagers were upset but felt powerless. They knew complaining to King Amani was their only hope, so they went to the king, one by one, with stories of Prince Jabari's doings. King Amani listened with a heavy heart each time. He apologized and tried to make things right. He gave out more crops or money, saying, "I'm sorry, please understand." It was clear that King Amani was troubled by his son's behavior, but he loved him too much to be harsh. The villagers appreciated the king's kindness, but they also wished Prince Jabari would learn to be more like his father. King Amani knew this too, and hoped that one day Prince Jabari would understand the true meaning of being a leader. As the sun set on the village, life went on, but the shadow of the prince's actions loomed large, hinting at challenges to come. The villagers hoped for a change, a day when Prince Jabari would see the light of kindness and generosity, just like his father, King Amani. One bright morning, with the sun kissing the earth, King Amani called a big meeting at the royal palace. Everyone important in the village was there, including the wise council of elders who had long beards and kind eyes. They all gathered around, curious about the king's sudden call. King Amani stood up, his voice steady and clear. "My dear friends," he began, "I must travel to a far land across the great rivers and mountains. I will be gone for 3 moons. During this time, my son, Prince Jabari, will take care of our village. He will be in charge." A wave of whispers spread through the room. The elders, who were wise like owls, felt a storm coming. They whispered among themselves, "Oh no, that's not good. Jabari, really?" They knew Jabari loved himself a little too much and didn't listen to anyone. But the king had made up his mind, and no one could change it. As soon as King Amani left, Prince Jabari wasted no time. He stood tall and announced, "I am your leader now." But instead of wisdom and kindness, he ruled with arrogance. He sent the elders away from the palace, saying, "I don't need old advice." Prince Jabari was making everyone's day really, really hard. He was so naughty he'd ride on people's backs just for fun, like they were horses. He would go to the market and take whatever caught his eye. No please, no thank you, no thank you, nothing, leaving the sellers in tears. Sometimes he would laugh loudly, the sound echoing through the quiet market as if he was enjoying their misery. And most shocking of all, he pointed at any girl he fancied, demanding she come to the palace. If anyone dared to speak up, he would order his guards to beat them up. The villagers were scared and angry, but they felt helpless. Who could stand up to the prince? The elders tried to reason with him, reminding him of his father's ways, but Prince Jabari wouldn't listen. He laughed at them, saying, "I am the future king. My word is law." As the days passed, the village, once full of joy and laughter, grew quiet under Prince Jabari's rule. The once bustling market was now subdued, with people whispering cautiously, always on edge. The people missed King Amani deeply, hoping for his quick return. They longed for the days of fairness and kindness, wondering how long they would have to endure Prince Jabari's misrule. There was this very old woman in the village, wise and kind, who went to Jabari and said, "Listen, young man, if you don't let anyone talk to you, you're going to trip and fall hard." Her voice trembled, but her eyes were steady, looking directly into his. But did Jabari listen? Nope. He just kept doing his thing, thinking he was the tallest tree in the forest. But he would soon realize that even the tallest trees can be shaken by the wind. In the heart of our village lived Nuru, a farmer known far and wide for his big farm of corn and yams, and for something even more special, his beautiful twin daughters. These twins were like 2 peas in a pod, yet each shone in her own way. Their laughter was like music, and their kindness like a warm breeze. Everyone in the village adored them, and many dreamed of winning their hearts. The twins often helped their father on the farm, carrying baskets filled with freshly picked yams and humming soft tunes that made the work feel lighter. One sunny day, as Prince Jabari roamed the village on his usual rounds of mischief, his eyes fell upon Nuru's daughters, walking in their father's farm. Their beauty struck him like a lightning bolt. He had seen them before, but today he decided, "I must have them both as my wives." So Prince Jabari, with all the subtlety of a charging bull, approached Nuru. "I, your prince, have chosen your daughters to be my brides," he declared, as if he was bestowing an honor. Nuru's heart sank. This was not the honor Prince Jabari believed it to be. It was a command. one that carried the weight of a threat. In the village, it was unheard of for one man to marry two sisters, let alone when the girls were too young and not ready for marriage. But how could Nuru say no to the prince? The fear of what Prince Jabari could do to his family and his farm weighed heavily on him. He looked at his daughters, their eyes wide with shock, and his heart ached. With a heavy heart, Nuru nodded in agreement, his words stuck in his throat. The twins, standing by their father, were shocked. They knew of Prince Jabari's reputation, and the thought of being married to him filled them with dread. Word of Prince Jabari's decision spread through the village. Whispers of discontent rustled through the streets. The once happy chatter was now replaced by uneasy murmurs. How shameful! Two sisters, this is too much. The villagers' displeasure grew, but so did their fear of speaking out against the prince. Despite the villagers' whispers and their father's heavy heart, the twins stood tall. The twin girls, though, whispered to each other and smiled a little smile. They had a secret plan brewing, something to teach this shameless prince, a lesson he wouldn't forget. They had a plan, one that would show Prince Jabari he could not take whatever or whomever he wanted without consequences. The village watched, holding its breath, as Nuru's daughters walked towards the prince's palace. This was more than just a marriage, it was a turning point, one that would challenge Prince Jabari in ways he never expected. Inside the grand walls of the royal palace, Prince Jabari was buzzing with pride. He had brought the twins home, ready to show them off as his newest treasures. He imagined the admiration in the eyes of his guests and felt invincible. But the twins, they had a different story in mind. They weren't going to let Prince Jabari parade them around without a fight. They were clever, full of spirit, and they had a plan. The twins started by being politely disobedient. They would smile sweetly at Prince Jabari's orders and then do just the opposite. If he asked for water, they'd bring him a leaf. If he wanted silence, they'd laugh and sing. The prince, used to getting his way, was baffled. He couldn't understand why he couldn't control them. He would frown, his frustration growing as they continued their polite defiance, but the twins only smiled innocently. Then came the day of the big feast. Prince Jabari had invited men of honor from neighboring villages to show off his power and his beautiful new brides. The palace was buzzing with preparations, and Prince Jabari was puffed up like a peacock, eager to impress. He paced back and forth, occasionally glancing at himself in the mirror, adjusting his robe to make sure he looked perfect. So Prince Jabari asked the twins to make the most delicious feast ever. "Please make it nice for my guests," he said, thinking they'd listen this time. But the twins, with plans to punish the prince, had a different idea. They nodded and took the money to buy food. But guess what? They bought nothing to eat and nothing to drink. The big moment came, and all the guests were sitting around, tummies rumbling, waiting for something delicious. The twins walked in with big trays and pots, and everyone's eyes got as big as moons. Here comes the feast, they thought. But surprised, the plates were as empty as a bird's nest in winter, and the pots were full of water, not the sweet palm wine everyone expected. Prince Jabari, shocked, stood up to ask questions, but then splash. The twins poured the water right over his head in front of everyone. Can you imagine? There he was, all soaked and drippy, looking like a fish out of water. His guests couldn't believe their eyes. They were so shocked they could hardly speak. They got up and left, leaving Jabari standing there, dripping and embarrassed. Oh, how the tables had turned. The twins showed him that being mean and bossy wasn't going to make anyone respect or listen to him. Just as Prince Jabari was steaming like a pot of hot soup, all angry and sending for Nuru, guess who shows up? King Amani. Yes, the king himself walked right back into the palace. The king walked straight to the palace, his presence commanding and calm. The villagers gathered, curious and hopeful, wondering what would happen next. Prince Jabari, still nursing his wounded pride, was shocked to see his father return so soon. "Father, you are back early," he exclaimed, a mix of happiness and fear in his voice. King Amani looked at his son, his face unreadable. Then, turning to the villagers and the gathered crowd, he began to speak. "My people, I left on a journey, not of distance but of learning. I wanted to see how my son would rule in my absence." The air was thick with anticipation as King Amani continued. "I have watched unseen as my son chose the path of arrogance and misuse of power. This was a test, not just for Jabari, but for all of us to remind us of the values we hold dear." Prince Jabari's heart sank. He glanced at Nuru and the twins, who stood among the villagers, their dignity intact despite everything. King Amani's voice grew firmer. "Jabari, you have failed to respect and serve the people. You sought to rule by fear, not by love. Therefore, you will no longer be prince. Instead, you will serve the village to learn the humility and kindness you so lack." The villagers gasped, then murmured in agreement. It was a fitting punishment, they thought, for someone who had misused his power so greatly. And so Prince Jabari became a servant to the village, tending to the fields, carrying water, and doing all the tasks he had once thought himself above. It was hard work, but with each passing day, he learned the value of humility, kindness, and respect. The twins, their spirits unbroken, continued to be adored by the village. They reminded everyone of the strength of standing up for what's right, even in the face of power. King Amani, wise as ever, watched over his people, his heart heavy but hopeful. He knew that the lessons of these days would echo through the village for generations to come. Jabari learned that being a leader isn't about telling people what to do. It's about listening, helping, and caring. He found out that being truly strong means being kind and humble. No more showing off, no more taking what's not given now. He was giving back, and oh, how good it felt. This tale, the one about the shameless prince, wraps up with a bow of wisdom. It tells us, no matter how young or old we are, that being humble is mighty. It teaches us that power is not for making others feel small, but for lifting them up, making everything better for everyone, making everything better for everyone. And that, my friends, is the true heart of a leader. I hope you enjoyed the tale. If so, please like the video, share it with your family and friends, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for more enchanting tales like this one. Goodbye.